Lead tore through the air, shattering the few remaining panes of glass hanging in the front entrance of the casino and narrowly missing Rick and Jane. Rick continued heading perpendicularly to the entrance until he and Jane hit the wall of the building, at which point the Humvee on the road no longer had a shot at them. "Come on, get inside!" Rick continued pushing Jane forward until he saw her stumble, at which point he caught her arm and held her up. "Are you okay?" Jane turned toward him, her mouth open as she panted, trying to form words with which to reply. She mumbled something incoherent as another blast of fire echoed out. "Damn it!" Rick struggled as he hauled all of his gear and tried to support Jane as they moved closer to the casino entrance. Rick heard a commotion behind him and glanced back to see movement amongst the rubble. Unable to fire on the pair from the road, a few of the men from the Humvees had disembarked and were pushing forward to catch up to Rick before he could get inside. "Come on, Jane!" Rick shook her by the arm, and he felt her begin to walk under her own power again. With a final few steps, they crossed over into the entrance of the casino through a broken window and made it inside. Rick steered Jane to the left, behind the wall, and dropped his bags onto the floor. He grabbed the shotgun from the bag and whirled back around to face the entrance. The first of the group to finish making it through the rubble screamed as Rick fired the shotgun. The buckshot spread out in a wide arc at the distance between the two, and while the man wasn't mortally wounded, he clawed at his face and neck as the pellets pierced through his skin. He fell backward into the rubble as the rest of the group paused, suddenly reconsidering their pursuit of Rick and Jane. While the group had been temporarily halted by Rick's fire, he knew that they wouldn't hold back for long. Once they worked up the nerve to make another move, Rick figured that he might be able to take down one or two of them before they killed him. Got to think of something else. Rick's eyes flicked across the interior of the casino, his vision slowly adjusting to the darkness. The interior of the building looked like something had torn it apart. Half of the tables and chairs he could see were knocked over, large sections of the roof had caved in or cracked, and the floor was littered with decorations and artwork that had been knocked off of the walls. The evidence of the earthquake that Rick had heard about was plain as day, but he still found the idea difficult to comprehend. He took a few steps back from the entrance, looking up at the slanted ceiling, when he saw that a large neon sign hanging from the wall was precariously positioned and looked as though it could fall at a moment's notice. Rick stepped back even farther, pointed the shotgun at the sign's supports, and fired. Having such low mass, the pellets couldn't do much to damage the metal supports, the wall mounts, or the sign itself. At least under normal circumstances they couldn't. As 3 shells full of buckshot bounced off of the sign and the supports, Rick heard metal groaning as the tiny vibrations disturbed the delicate balance of the sign, and it began to continue its slide downward that had started during the earthquake. The sharp snap of steel breaking preceded the sign shifting downward and outward suddenly before coming to a brief halt. The sign swung back towards the entrance, and Rick's eyes opened wide and he shook his head, hoping that it would stay in position long enough to swing back in the opposite direction. A few seconds more was all the sign needed as the bottom swung back towards the interior of the casino. This movement was the final straw for the sign's supports, and the massive object came crashing down in a thunderous roar. Because the sign was already angled toward the entrance, instead of falling flat on the inside of the casino, it fell at an angle towards the entrance. Light streaming in from the outside was suddenly blotted out as the sign was jammed into the front of the building, completely blocking it off from entry or exit. "Get through that, assholes!" Rick allowed himself a brief smile as he spoke quietly, overjoyed that his ludicrous plan had somehow worked.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.